Hey everybody, this is Silver Spook, and this is the Silver Spook live stream. And today we will be doing a Pan-Disintegration update that has nothing to do with those other words that start with pan and they rhyme with anemic. Well, actually, it's anemic, but anyways, um, we will be talking about updates on our health and our collective health today. And I'm going to try to see if I can not get the stream massively buried and deranked by avoiding saying certain words. But I haven't done like a specifically focusing on this topic in a bit. And we're having very high levels of um, panini. We're having very high levels of the virus uh, as we speak. Um, Obviously, the current president of the United States is down for the count in part because of a reinfection with a particular pathogen that you might know about, and also there are peak levels of it all over the United States, among other places. Record levels. Uh, I think it's the highest levels in any summer, highest summer levels ever at the current time in history. So now is a good time to talk about this again. Kind of focus on that. But I'm also going to talk about kind of this disintegration, the disintegration in the sense of I mean, civilizational, societal, economic, technological, geostrategic, geopolitical, and just familial, internal in the household disintegration. Because I feel like that's really the phase that we're at, is in a not like dismemberment, in the sense that like the parts of the body of a society, if the society is as the Thomas Hobbes described the body with the head, the king, the head of state at the top, the government, the head is has catastrophic neural inflammation and omeletification. I mean, we watched that live on screen. I'm waiting for Kamala Harris to show some extreme the new head of the Hydra to show extreme neural disintegration. Waiting for Kamala Harris to start saying sentences that have no beginnings, no ends, and make no points. Kind of like her predecessor. I'm gonna give that about because she's a bit younger, so she has a little bit of time on her side. I mean, she has a little bit less total dementia acceleration. But it's undeniable. I mean, and even the Western media, even mainstream media, is I'm being careful because I know like there's certain things you can't say as part of the digital mental disintegration. We can't even say certain things without getting the stream seen. But I've seen a lot of mainstream media articles, CNN, Washington Post. I'm gonna look at just to mix it up a bit. I'm gonna show a Canadian media article about what they're saying about it, which is full of a lot of nonsense and incorrect information. But they are talking about it again because it's very hard, very, very difficult to bury the fact of what is happening when it comes to the thing that starts with pan. It's kind of like that guy who plays flutes and he has goat legs. And he hangs out with his friend Mick E Mouse. Anyway, I'm trying to think of other ways to say that word to say what I want to say without getting this getting the video hidden. Anyways, but we'll see how creative I can come up with while dealing with massive respiratory you know plant gametes, plant particles that I'm also giving me allergic reactions that cause my lungs and my body to feel a bit off. So I'm dealing with that simultaneously. I'm not wearing a mask right now, but it's because it can be difficult to it can be difficult while I'm using the computer or during the stream. I mean, I could do it, but I'm not in extreme danger at the moment. So but in between, I actually wear a mask even to stop the allergens. Just a pro tip in case you were wondering. If you have seasonal pollen related allergies, right, or any kind of allergies, grass. Holly, my partner, has trimmed grass. Outbreaks of headaches and runny nose and just feeling really down under the weather from grass. So if you have allergies to things in the air that you inhale, wearing a mask can actually help with that. As I've discovered, Holly also has discovered. More uses for N95s, KN95s, etc., and other high-grade respirators. Anyways, okay, so let's move on. But yeah, in case you don't know that, because I don't know where people are coming from to this video. The Panini is still the Corvette Panini is still unaliving, disabling, and eating the brains of everyone. It is still doing that. Okay, just in case you don't know, it's still happening. Millions and millions, 30 million plus people. It's going to be 40 million or more soon. Officially dead. Many more than that are unofficially dead. And then we're looking at hundreds of millions new disabled and many more unofficially worldwide disabled. It's over 5 million children mass disabled, mentally unable to do schoolwork, physically unable to like walk and run. They can't play in the schoolyard. 5 million children disabled in the U.S. That's just in the U.S. That was a recent statistic from the Corvette Panini. What's up, Strin? So many people in our immediate circles, like every month, there's some new people that we know are like taken down seriously, like some like permanently. It's really like people think, there's so many misconceptions. One is that this terrible virus its impact is acute. Totally not acute. The worst part is not the acute part. The acute part is the virus being cutesy with you and playing footsie with you. That's not the coughing, the headache, the sneezing, runny nose, the diarrhea, the nausea, the vomit, even the vomiting and chest pain. That like that from the respiratory aspects, that is not the worst part. The worst part is when you cannot do anything in your life and you are in excruciating pain 23 hours of the day. When you have worse than cancer level quality of life disablement, that's the part, right? Imagine never being able to do anything ever again, right? Millions of people go through this, but there's this weird effect where it's kind of, I like to compare this effect to like it's like millions of people facing away from a like hurricane category 7 hurricane pyro sharknado, like just the most horrible thing you can imagine, right? Or like a tsunami of fire, and everyone's facing away from it, right? And the second and the people that get hit by it, right, suddenly like, oh my god, I'm on fire, this is the worst thing ever. But everyone else, right, everyone standing in front of them is like, I don't see anything, all I see is blue skies, right? But every moment, right, every second, new people are being consumed by the fire, right? And then their life is over. They're in a whole new reality called everything hurts, everything is terrible. Like I can't move, I can't think. My brain has stopped functioning, right? Like everything is just horrible. But you don't. But the people who haven't yet experienced, there's an event horizon, right? From which light, information, and the truth cannot escape. The second that you actually come down with the extremely serious and probably inevitable if you keep getting reinfected, right? When you come down with the extremely serious long Corvette, right? When you get the really serious one, not the little colds, right? The thing that millions and millions of people have, hundreds of millions now, right? Then you realize, oh my God, and you can't go to concerts, you can't just go to lunch, you can't do anything because you're so completely broken. Your body and your mind are so destroyed, right? You have dementia. You have dementia at 17, 16, 25, 35, 40, 50, right? You have dementia. You have the chronic fatigue syndrome that's worse than cancer in terms of quality of life. You can't move, you can't talk, you can't think. You have no energy to do anything for more than 50 minutes a day. You have to be in permanent health care. People are unaliving themselves from this. That's how bad your quality of life is. People unalive themselves from this extreme chronic fatigue like syndrome, right? At a higher rate than people who get cancer. That's how bad your quality of life is, right? And so, sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's no pain. But sometimes the pain of being unable to do literally anything in life and watching your loved ones either abandon you or sacrifice their own life to care for the lump of flesh that you have become that's unable to do anything, right? And people don't realize, and then that's its own torture, right? Is having to go through that phase, right? That's worse than dying from cancer. Like in terms of, again, I like to reiterate that because people think, oh, I'll have a little cold, I'll have a little flu, and then I'll have a little, I'll take some Paxlovid and I'll get better. I'll take a vaccine and then no, you will suffer and you will torture your family. That's already, probably suffering because of many other, gestures vaguely around, problems in the world. But whatever you thought your problems are, you will multiply them. Again, it's a whole new galaxy of hurt that you will enter. Right? But once you enter it, once you're in that extreme disability phase, like people that are already disabled, it's not the only thing. Getting the extreme long Corvette is not the only way to get that level of disability, right? Or if you had to deal with a relative with extreme dementia, right? Then But the people that haven't been through that, they're in another universe, right? They're in another reality. But Corvette will help you enter. It will help. It's like a Corvette. It's like a Cenobite. It helps you to. It has such sights to show you. It has such, like in Hellraiser, right? You have whole new worlds to open up that you didn't know existed, and once you enter them, nobody in the normal world wants to hear you. Right? Once you enter those, you are alone in the dark with Pinhead, called COVID, and he wants to be your best friend forever, till you die. So, but anyways, I'm sorry it got so dark so quick, but it's. I mean, it's part is sometimes people don't respond except to fear, which they should be, of this, so they can take rational, empirical, adult actions, such as wearing a mask in public spaces and even indoor spaces, even if there's nobody in there, because you don't know how long people have been in there and been exhaling aerosolized particulate before you went in, which is a whole other problem. Anyways, let's move on and let's look at some of the specifics now. Let's get to the specifics. I kind of want this to be like an informational. On top of entertain, obviously it's always going to be slightly entertaining. Oh no, what happened to all of my? Oh, here, I had all these links. Okay, let's look at this. Before, if you want to look real quick, a good YouTube place to go to is a YouTube channel that has lots of good information is Lola Germs. That's a good. There's lots of videos you can watch that are that's easily digestible, usually pretty short and to the point, and it would like decently entertaining and production value going on, more than my videos obviously. Um, in case you want to learn more from a YouTube channel. Okay, let's look at another place though. Let's look at my other links here. Okay, what is happening? Hey, what's up, Stern Sam? So what is happening? Here's this is kind of like not necessarily directly related, but since I saved it, so people are worried about the H5N1. The H5N1 is obviously evolving, and people need to be keeping an eye on that as well, and the experts keeping an eye certainly. Cow sick with H5N1 also tested positive for the Dinosaurus coffee too. Surprisingly, we detected this virus in a nasal swab from a sick cow. So so another thing that people maybe don't know, if you haven't been paying attention to the actual information sources, which are not coming from Western mainstream sources, corporate, even the government is full of nonsense. The CDC and WHO, knowingly lying all the time through their teeth. So when humans get the COVID, you get serious immunocompromisation that is equivalent to a run-in with HIV/AIDS. That's how bad the immune disabling is, based upon actual people who studied and worked on therapies and treatments, like actual doctors that specialize in HIV/AIDS treatment. And they said what they see with the COVID is on par with HIV/AIDS. It's like the same mechanisms, even in many cases. Like that, and that's just in the that is in the immune system compromisation. Your ability for the body to fight off infections, right, is severely decreased. The T cell count decrease in white blood cells. Even the mechanisms by which your body's immune system works, like, are destroyed and attacked by the Corvette virus. And so animals, which are also getting mass infected with this virus, they are also losing their immune systems, which makes them more susceptible to infection with H5N1, avian bird flu. Bird flu, now cow flu, and pig and rat and cat, and it's in all of them, but obviously it's the H5N1 avian flu. And so that is helping. So what we see is a synergy of, it's a viral symphony. All the viruses work together hand in hand. The viruses are like, why can't we be friends? And then they come together, hold hands, and then they make everyone and all the animals sicker, and increase the likelihood of human to human spread of H5N1. So there you go. If you're worried about H5, it's kind of like if you're worried about H5N1, and you're like, I hope, wow, that thing has a 50% kill rate. I really hope that this H5N1 avian flu doesn't jump to humans, right? But you're not masking. You by spreading around the COVID, you are multiplying the chances that the H5N1 has a jump. But anyway, it makes the leap. Okay, now let's look at some of this. For those that don't know, the WHO, World Health Organization, knew, that it was airborne. And I've talked about this on other videos as well. They knew it was airborne, but they lied about the mode of transmission, saying it was droplets. They hoped that it could be contained. Droplet measures would be enough to stop a panini, and that the mode of transmission could be, quote unquote, sorted out later. So this is actually what they believe. Mike Ryan, there's a famous video of the lead person. His name was this person said that here. This virus could. I don't want to play the video because I don't want to get in trouble. But Mr. Tedros, he was the lead on this WHO information campaign about the new novel virus early in 2020, right? And Mike Ryan, who was another member of the WHO, who was next to him, right? Who was, I think it was his superior, but he wasn't doing the talking at the moment. Mike Ryan was afraid of quote unquote, scaring people and wanted to give, quote unquote, people something they could do, like hand washing, and worry about the reality of the airborne transmission only if it gets away with the, i.e., deal with the circumstances at a later date. You got a plan to avoid using the term airborne. So there was a plan. This is not a plan. This is mass planet-wide criminal, deadly. It's murder. That's what it is ultimately, right? But this is like it's so like mass crime and unaliving people is second nature to, like, you know, Western places and the governments in particular. It's just like, you know, well, we're just gonna go and wipe out Iraq now because, you know, it's just a little bit of a nuisance. They talk about it's like they're having lunch. You know, who should we have? Should we kill 1 million in Iraq or Afghanistan? It's just like, but that's the way these kind of people. These are sick people. I mean, obviously, everybody's watched live stream GENOCIDE, right, on their phone. Speaking of stuff you can't talk about, you know, it's the stuff that really needs to be talked about because you can't talk about it in the West. And if you say it on their platforms, you'll get your visibility nuked. Which is why a lot of countries are dropping Western platforms. I just saw Bangladesh is banning all these platforms. They're doing it for slightly different reasons. But, you know, like I think Turkey like blocked Instagram. Russia's talking about getting rid of Google and lots of these others. I mean, China's already doesn't need any Western platforms at all. And they've done a lot better after the global snafu mass planetary Western tech meltdown that was the CrowdStrike, right? So, but yeah, so they don't want people hearing about, they don't want to hear people even hearing any of these words ever, right? PALSD, if I have to spell it out, then so that's what needs to be talked about the most. But so we can't talk about that, and airborne was another thing we could not talk about. But by hiding that fact, right? When they knew, again, these people knew. The World Health Organization, which operates under, it is funded by the United States primarily, so it is a corrupt criminal organization by extension, like the U.S. military and like it's the U.S. and Western governments that go along with that are doing GENOCIDE live stream to everybody's phone, right? And but similarly, when they hid this fact that it was airborne, and they knew, even Donald Trump knew in early 2020, he was on a private phone line, and it's a recorded conversation where Donald Trump says, this is going to be huge. It's like in January, February 2020. He said, it's going to be really massive. It's going to be like, you know, because based upon his own internal government reports that he's getting as the president of the United States, he's like, it's going to be like the Spanish flu or bigger. That's what Donald Trump said. And he's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but even he knew that, right? And it's like, but, you know, it's not going to help me out personally. It's not going to help me and my funders if I talk about this thing too much. So we're going to just, we're going to just call it the China virus and try to downplay it. All of that, every single official that did, that's all mass, you know, criminal. That's mass murder. That's all that is. But you're led to believe that, when we make a policy decision here about, you know, invading and destroying this country, committing the highest crime that in worldwide international law has, the war of aggression, or when we bury information that will kill 30 million, 40 million, possibly billions of people, that's just like business or politics, or that's just, that's just caring for people or something. It's really warped. I mean, that's a whole thing, man. But yeah, no, but the reality is that it was always known that it was airborne. They've lied about that the whole time. It's in writing that the WHO has internal documents that they knew the SARS viruses collectively. SARS, the 2000 SARS was airborne. They even had specific N95 recommendations for hospitals in like Singapore and in Southeast Asia where the WHO is working. They had recommendations that says everyone should be masked in these hospitals. And there should be strong ventilation. There should be airflow in and out of all hospital rooms to minimize the infection of the airborne SARS, right? And this new SARS that came about in 2020, it was already known it was airborne, right? And it's just a collective mass attempt to bury it because, profits, keeping people going to restaurants and clubs and not paying for ventilation that costs money to retrofit. And and you'd have to deal with your population that you'd have to inform on this, and you'd have to make them do things that are slightly inconvenient, and you don't want to do that, right? So politically and economically, under a capitalist corporate greed structure, similar to CrowdStrike, right? The decision was made that we're just gonna deny these facts, and we're gonna kill hundreds of millions of people potentially, and we potentially we kill the whole planet, but we don't care because monies and powers, and that's what runs the West. Okay, so anyways, also is important. The report from China said that it was airborne. So the Chinese acknowledged it was airborne. They told the WHO to say that. The WHO, run by the United States, run and funded by the United States for global plutocratic interests and colonial interests, they chose to omit the truth that China was sharing about its airborne nature. And then, of course, later on, the United States also, through its Pentagon, funded a massive millions of dollars, multi-million-dollar worth anti-vaccination campaign in the Philippines and other Southeast Asian countries, as part of the geopolitical element to this whole thing, right? But the reality is that it was known this entire time, and this is also why, okay, you need to be doing this. If people around you aren't doing it, are not wearing the appropriate facial coverings, right? Then even more reason, right? And we have always known this. It has never not been the case, right? People are collectively empowered by at various levels throughout the society. There are celebrities that are having giant concerts, and then they're not taking that seriously. That are have them, like Taylor Swift and Adele. Adele had like $470,000 worth of rapid air transfer for her stage, like in her Vegas shows. She had like $500,000 worth of literally swapping the air out every few seconds on the stage. People don't realize this, right? But she actually had her own precautions. All the rich have their own ultraviolet light, basically electromagnetic rays sanitizing the air that like inches from their face, right? So that so they don't have to be masked to be protected, right? But no average person can afford that. Even to put these Corsi filters, what do you call those? The Corsi Rosenthal boxes. You can make these. They're not super expensive, and they have more expensive things. But to make one of these boxes to filter your own air, you have to have a fan blowing constantly, and people are squeezed, or people are not in good economic situations, right? 70 million people were like malnourished because they didn't have enough money for food like 2 years ago. It's more than that now, right? In the U.S. So to even try to clean your own air in your house, if you have COVID, if you have people that don't take the virus seriously in your own household, I was just talking to some of my friends, it could cost you another $100 in electricity a month just to try. It might not even work, or some extra. That's even $20, $30, $50. That can make or break people's budgets as everything falls apart in the sick places in the world. So I mean, obviously, like if you can afford it, then that's great, and if that helps, that might help you in a situation that you're in. Because I know people are in all kind of situations. Most people would be like, if there wasn't a society that was completely sick and terminally broken around them, they would probably many more people would just make the decision to mask, but they're surrounded by job, by work, by family, by friends, by network. They're where they go to have fun. Their historical attachment to going to restaurants, clubs, bars, concerts. They just getting on planes. And in high risk situations, people are attached to those things, and that makes it hard to. They have to make decisions about these things. Take their health and collective health seriously, or a little bit not seriously. And make and just live it up. And then if I die and I get sick and I get if the pinhead hellraiser torturer of massively debilitating chronic fatigue, extreme long COVID comes for me, well, whatever, I don't care, right? Now usually they regret it after they get the long COVID. They're like, oh my god, why did I go to that concert? How stupid was I? Right? This is hell. Now I'm stuck here in an unending cycle of waking up, lying down on the couch, right? Like looking at my phone for 30 minutes a day, and then being so tired and racked with headaches and fibromyalgia like pain in my body that I after 30 minutes of scrolling my phone, I have to sleep the rest of the day. That's what it's like for some people. So some's not quite as bad, but some extreme that can be extremely bad like that. So it's like basically, your life is being in pain, and then being teased by the semblance of existence for an hour or a few minutes a day, or maybe a few hours if you're lucky, and then going back into hell, right? And then you can choose to stay alive for a little bit longer, or figure out something else to do with existence. So, and everybody, somewhere everybody kind of knows they're making this choice, right? And some people deny they're making that choice. Well, I just have to do this. I just have to go to the restaurant and be completely taking no precautions. I have to go to concerts. I have family members that are like that. Most people still are like that. And they have not yet entered the torture dungeon, of COVID Pinhead. They have not entered the Cenobites hell yet. They not know what pain means. You do not know what pain means, Mr. Deckard. But I will teach you. Off world, we have the tools. Out of the world of quote unquote normal life, there are the tools to teach you what pain means and what suffering means. But anyways, okay. Let's move on. Okay. Other news. Brain fog is better called SARS-associated neurocognitive disorder. The reason why I keep bringing up this horrible thing that you could enter into, right? Every time you go out and you risk with no mask and eating and not taking the precautions to avoid infection, right? Is because again, it's to try to make people appropriate. I'm trying to turn people that are facing away from the tsunami of fire that is rapidly approaching their location, right? And it doesn't kill you. It just kind of burns you until you choose to end your life sometimes. It slowly burns you alive and then resets your body every day and then burns you again. So people are facing away, but I want people to face towards the tsunami of fire, I'm trying to turn people, grabbing people's head and I'm going just look that way. And which is what a lot of people, people that are actual public health educators, right? Not corrupt, on the take liars and killers with a medical degree called WHO, CDC, and Western doctors and health specialists, American Medical Association, and governments generally. They're not really, they don't care about public health. There's no such thing as public health. Public health died a long time ago. There. But for people that actually are like individual guerrilla public health educators, like we try to be, it's basically about trying to, I mean, part of it is like that's a whole question. How do you get people? Somebody posted somewhere, I forget where it was. I have this mental health disorder. I have a mental health disorder where I believe that presenting people with facts and information and logic will cause them to change their mind. That is a disorder. Certainly in illogical, irrational places where people don't know how to think or care to think or care, and have their empathy and their humanity beaten out of them daily by an uncaring, moral injury inflicting, massively twisted and sick culture and society, right? And to believe that you can simply give people information and they'll change their mind, it is incorrect at best, delusional, and it's its own kind of mental health disorder at least. A lot of liberals are like that. Oh, if we just give Biden or Kamala or AOC the truth, then they'll change. It's like they know the truth. They choose to make a lot of money and have a lot of power and lie. It's very simple. That to keep believing that is its own kind of mental health disorder as well. But speaking of mental health disorders, right? What was called brain fog. What was called? Also, what's up to Grant? What was called brain fog earlier on? Because and I was talking to Holly. Why do they call it brain fog? Right. The reason why they call it brain fog, is because if you think of a fog, a fog. I'm just gonna turn this off for a second. A fog is what happens. Is a weather event, right? Where suddenly you're driving on the road. I don't drive a lot in the so-called United States, but I was driving in California, was it California or Oregon? And I had never actually experienced this, but then suddenly all this fog arrived. It appeared in the road like at night, and I was like, whoa, can't see anything, right? So fog appears. It's like a weather event that appears. It lowers your visibility. It disorients you. You can't get information about what's out there, right? It appears. It's in the air, right? It's like a cloud at low altitude, right? And the fog appears, and then you disoriented. You can't see. I can't tell. There's cars coming on the road. This is dangerous. I gotta stop, right? But then after the fog comes, and then the fog goes back away. It dissipates again, right? Oh, now I can see the road. Now I can see the street signs. I can see the car. I can see the contra, the traffic coming in the opposite direction. Thank goodness. And I remember I experienced that. It was a bit scary. I never experienced it in Hawaii, where I'm from. You don't have a lot of that, right? But driving through fog and seeing fog, it can be a very frightening experience. But it's also a temporary thing, right? Fog comes and then fog goes, right? Clouds don't live on the right 3 feet above the ground, right? The clouds tend to stay up in the air. So fog as a temporary, people experience fog as a temporary weather event. And so when the criminal Western health institutions, governments, medical experts, quote unquote experts, called it brain fog, right? It's kind of like saying it's droplets, hand washing. They're not saying the word airborne. When you say brain fog, people get this idea, oh, well, when you get COVID, sometimes suddenly, oh, you can't remember things. But it's kind of like, it's kind of like a little bit of a drowsiness, right? It's kind of like, oh, I had a little too much to drink. Oh, I'm kind of drunk. I can't. I'm slurring my words a bit, but it's I'm just technically you are killing your brain cells when you're drinking, but it's a temporary condition of being inebriated, and then you'll get better later, right? And the brain fog is it's kind of like it's kind of like when you wake up and you're groggy, you're feeling a bit foggy. I gotta wipe the sleep out of my eyes, right? Like when you first wake up, from the unconsciousness state of sleeping, right? Like during the day, right? During the day, your body is going through levels of alertness, awakeness, and I studied. I was going to be a neuroscientist at one point, so I know a bit more about this than I need to necessarily. But your body goes through phases of and degrees of consciousness, degrees of alertness, right? When you first wake up, you're kind of half in the dreams are still kind of fading. You know, you're not even sure quite who you are sometimes you were like dreaming you were Superman, or you were Daredevil, or you were some science fictional hero. You might you have all kind of weird states of mind while you're asleep. Sometimes you have no dreams at all. You're just it's just a black nothingness or whatever it is. You're in the void, and then you become when you're awakened, right? You're going through levels of alertness. Sometimes somebody asks you a question when you first wake up. You're like, somebody's like what's your social security, or I don't know, something like something a weird question like what time is your appointment tomorrow for the dentist? You're like you're not going to have the information right there because your brain is still your neurons are kind of firing up. Your body physically, right, is going from a very low low activity state. Your heart is slow. Your voice is generally deeper, right? Because your body. So my point is that like over the day, right, you're going from a more foggy state, a temporary more foggy state, to a very alert, unfogged, very clear, right? Clear as day. It's kind of like also like it's daytime. It's very bright. Everything is illuminated, and you can see like the trees, the house, the road, right? Everything very easily, right? But when it's but also physically, your body is very alert, right? If somebody asks you, okay, what time is your dentist appointment? You're like, oh, it's at 1:45, because you're like you're fully functional, right? They're like as Biden was collapsing from COVID for multiple virus reinfections that destroyed his brain, right? On top, you get dementia, but he rapidly declined because COVID does literally omletifies, cause microthrombosis and all these other catastrophic impacts to your brain tissue, far more than any other virus. Even HIV/AIDS, which is known to penetrate the blood-brain barrier and enter your gray matter, but the COVID-19 is worse. Is the worst known virus of its kind that does that, among other things, right? So and Biden was sunsetting, meaning he was only allowed to go on stage from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. because like he's basically he's not even functional at all outside of that time, right? But part of that is there's a natural metabolic, right, and circadian rhythm to your body and your brain, right? And that your body, when you're sleeping, your body isn't damaged, right? It's like a car going from first gear, right? If you think of like when you're asleep, your car's off. When you wake up, you're in first gear, right? When you're having your breakfast, you're in second gear, right? When you're driving to work or you're starting your Zoom, you're like in third gear. And when you're working, you're in fourth gear. You're like in high gear, right? Your optimum performance, right? That's 10 to 4 or whatever it happens to be, right? And then when you exit work, you start going, you're winding down. So you're going to third gear. You're coming home. You're turning on your Netflix while you're cooking the dinner. You're going to second gear. You're kind of falling asleep during falling asleep while watching a bad science fiction movie from 1992 because there's nothing else good because society's disintegrating and Hollywood can't make anything good anymore. And then first gear is like you're getting ready to go to sleep, right? Taking your melatonin or playing Counter-Strike late at night with anti-imperial mods and where you fight Empire in PLASTINE and don't go to sleep. Like that's what I do. So I have an off-kilter circadian rhythm. But I'm just kidding. But my point is that like as you wind down and then eventually you turn back off, your engine turns back off, right? And then you're in it's not off, but you're idling, you're in sleep mode. right? And then you sleep in the night if you can. You know. Now, if you're committing mass GENOCIDE through COVID or PALESTINE, right? Because you're a Western leader, then you don't sleep. You just like have nightmares all night, and you're tortured by the demons of all the horror that you've done in the world, right? But if you do sleep for some reason, because you fight against that and you have no guilty conscience, then you sleep, then you're off, and then you wake back up, and then you go through your day. You go through first, second, third, fourth, right? And then 10 to 4 p.m. and then you go. But if you have severe dementia, Alzheimer's, cognitive decline caused by COVID reinfection, right? Then your body is like basically you're off, and you're barely in first or second gear during the 10 to 4 p.m. peak performance zone, right? You never get to fourth gear anymore, right? Biden never gets to fourth gear, right? Because his brain is destroyed by the SARS virus. On top of his age, there's many people that are at that age or older that have lots of that have been and were functional, and the less COVID they got, the better they were. Just statistically, empirically, every time you get reinfected, you have another 10-15% chance of the long COVID. Anyway, so my point is that when people talk about when they describe so when my point is that when they describe brain fog, they were, and this is a long discussion, but my point, it's kind of necessary to describe this. The fog is like people instinctually know that because they know the brain is at different levels of alertness, different levels of fogginess during the day, but it's always temporary, right? So people, when you say brain fog, you're implying that COVID is going to give you it's a temporary thing, that when you get COVID, right, you're coughing, you're wheezing, you have sore throat, right? You have to take these nasal swabs, and you lose so the weird one is losing your sense of taste and smell. But people are like, well, sometimes when you get a cold that happens, right? With COVID, you might never get it back, right? It's just destroying your brain matter, because there's actually there's neurological matter like inside the region of your upper nose. That's actually part of what is doing the smelling, and that's directly connects to your brain. It's one of the pathways for many things to get into your brain. Diseases is through your nose, right? And but the brain fog is part of it was like, oh, it's a temporary thing that it will fog over, and like fog, it dissipates, right? I mean, just as an example, right? If you're driving on a road, right, and something smashes the windshield, right, and you have a giant mega fracture in your windshield, okay? Oh my God! Like if you're driving and the fog happens, you're like, I can't see for a little bit. Well, if you slow down, you pull over, and then the fog will go away eventually, right? If a giant boulder smashes your windshield, and now you can't see through it because the glass is so fractured, it just looks like just opaque. You can't see, even barely see through it, right? That is not going to just go away, right? It's damage to your car, right? If an earthquake happens and the road is completely destroyed, right? And you're driving on that road, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a massive cave-in. This road is in shambles because it hasn't been paved. It's just like it's just a ruin, right? You can't, if you pull over to the side of the road, the road is not gonna magically uncave in, right? If the road is just like potholes and gravel and there's like caltrops everywhere, right? If you pull over to the side of the road for a few minutes, the road is not going to repair itself. You're not going to be able to drive that road. You're not going to be able to drive. You might never drive that road, right? If the windshield gets smashed and you pull over to the side of the road, you're not going to be able to see after a few minutes, right? So what I'm trying to make that the metaphor I'm trying to bring is like that is what is COVID is not brain fog. It is brain damage. It is brain annihilation. It's actually worse than that because your brain you can form new connections, but the memories and the knowledge and what you had previously, and also the capability of your brain to repair certain extreme damage, right? You're never gonna get that back. You can rebuild a destroyed, earthquake crushed, right, warped road, right? You can clear the caltrops and rocks if an avalanche happened, if a mudslide happens, right, and the road is just covered with boulders and mud and broken trees. You can clear that off. Even a broken windshield, right? You can just replace the windshield. It's going to be more expensive and hard than dealing with fog, which is just you stop for a little bit, right? But brain damage, which is what COVID causes, you will never get better from that. You'll never be what you were before. I mean, getting COVID is like getting a railroad spike shoved through your brain. It's like Holly and I, we have friends that are professional wrestlers, right? Getting COVID is like getting multiple serious concussions in your brain. Your brain is being smashed. The cells and the biology of your brain, the physical matter of your brain is being ruptured, right? And not like, obviously, if you cut your body, it can heal, but the neurology, your body the brain is not like a muscle. Like if you get a stabs and a gunshot in your arm, potentially you could heal from it. You'll never be 100% even there, but you can kind of get better. But the brain tissue, right? The knowledge that is installed there, it's like shooting a gun through a motherboard, through your microchip, right? If you take your hard drive, right, and you take a gun and you shoot a bullet through the hard drive, right? Even if you heal the hard drive by repairing the chip, the microprocessors, the silicon, and the electricity transmitting copper and the gold, right, and all these semiconductors, right? Even if you heal a hard drive that you shot a hole through, you're not getting much of that back. You get some of it back with certain recovery tools, but you're not, stuff that was blown up is not coming back. When you get COVID and you get brain damage, it's not going to come, and then the fog is not going to go away again. This is a thing that many people don't understand still. They still don't understand this, but this is actually what is happening. And this is why the WHO and the CDC and the United States, Western governments, business and political leaders and medical so-called professionals and doctors, they chose to use the word brain fog, is because they got paid a lot of money and they got to keep their jobs, and were part of this crime that killed millions, potentially billions of people, called hiding the fact that their people are getting brain fog. It's not just people are gonna suffer a little lower IQ points. It's not. There are 20% more accidents. Insurance companies know this on the road because of this. Planes are having more near mid-air collisions, accidents, and it is causing deaths. I mean, there's also, the planes are getting crappier because of the horrible capitalists, also crime and malfeasance that is not making the Boeing planes properly. But even that aside, the pilot error, right? Human industrial operator error, people's capacity. This is that many of the deaths due to car crashes, the millions of people that die from car crashes, that is being magnified. A part of that is chalked up to the brain damage, not brain fog, brain damage that people are getting, right? That from COVID. That is going to keep multiplying. Every year, every 6 months, every year, as millions and millions and millions of people, it doesn't. People are like, oh, well, eventually we'll get herd immunity. You don't get herd immunity to HIV/AIDS. You don't get herd immunity to Ebola. You don't get herd immunity. There's not going to be a herd immunity. It's like literally, I mean, the medical scientists, you can look at the actual studies. There's the actual people doing actual science. Like you're not going to get herd immunity to this. That is entirely a lie. If that was true, then Sweden would be doing the best. They're doing the worst. They have the worst deaths and mass disability and worst outcomes because of their completely zero precaution policies that they've been following. Worse than even the U.S. and Canada. That is a lie. Every time you keep getting reinfected, you are wearing it down. It's like wearing down your brake pads. This is believing in herd immunity is like believing in herd. Or believing in herd immunity or like acquired immunity. It's like believing in like herd brake pads, right? Oh, eventually, if everyone like pushes their brake really hard at the same time, brakes will never wear out, and everyone will have perfect brakes forever, right? Like if you keep using your brakes and you really hit the brakes real hard all the time, you're burning and you have that stink, burning brake pad smell in the air. You're wearing down the limited material in your brakes, and then your brakes run out, and then your brakes don't work anymore. You get that loud screeching sound as the metal scrapes against metal, and you irritate all the drivers around you. And I mean, we've had that sound because it's part of making you. I know that sound because we've had to. Okay, it's time to change the brake pad out, right? But getting your immune system and your body do not have infinite tolerance for these kind of diseases. What will happen is your health gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And in the 1800s, everyone just died at 16. That was the herd immunity, right? It's called everyone was going to get cholera. We're all going to get TB. We're all going to get these viruses, and then we're all going to die. Like really young. That was the average life expectancy for the working class in Britain in the 1800s, right? And then it was public health measures, not vaccines. Vaccines help a bit, but not significantly enough to make actually stop many of these problems. It was the public health measures that actually and not people not getting sick from cholera, people not getting sick from tuberculosis that actually made the biggest improvement in quality of life and life expectancy in these sick, twisted, messed up, mass disease countries and brain diseased countries with these horrible racist, colonialist, capitalist, malicious life ways and thought ways, which kind of reinforce. It's kind of like the most drugged up places where you couldn't figure out how to do basic hygiene and sanitize your water, so you have to have wine and beer be alcoholic beverages because that helps to sanitize. That's part of the reason why Europe had such high levels of alcoholic consumption. It's like you don't get water in Europe because historically they just haven't been very good at sanitation generally, and so they have to have like alcoholized liquid, right? Like beer and wine. But then if you mass consume beer and wine, that is also destroying your brain matter. It's a drug that you're slowly eating away your brain tissue and your body, your liver, everything is being attacked, right? You get alcohol when you're drinking that at a high level repeatedly. So you have brain and body damage because you can't do basic hygiene and sanitize and not like poop and piss and throw it out in the street. Like in Paris, everyone's swimming in E. coli water. Everyone's swimming in E. coli cholera water. Speaking of cholera, it's people talk loving the time of cholera. It's always a time of cholera in the West, in Europe. They're swimming in the shit and sewer filled waste dump that is this river in Paris for the Olympics. People are like vomiting their insides and dying. This one Western dude, this white dude, I forget what country it's from. He's like, oh, I take a little bit of E. coli every day, so I build up an immunity to E. coli. What's wrong with you? Like this is why the Africa, Asia, Latin America, indigenous people of America, and everyone else was like waving the incense around. It was not because we were worshiping you as gods. It's because we're like, why do you smell like the sewer? Do you swim in it? Oh yeah, we totally swim in it. But the solution is just eat a pellet of human shit a day, right? Just eat a little cholera every day, and that will cure. What? I'm not kidding. Somebody literally. That's like one of my updates. I'm gonna get there. Is that Western European Olympic athletes choose to consume small amounts of E. coli pathogen every day. Anyways, to build up their immunity. I mean, the West still believes this nonsense. It's amazing stuff. But so actually, I believe the part of the mind warping in the West, inbreeding, bad hygiene that results in needing to have bad sanitation that results in bad public health, that results in syphilis that destroys your mind, right? Nietzsche. And then you do a bunch of drugs because the only thing you can drink to stay hydrated is full of drugs, right? So you drug yourself up, kill more brain, get syphilis, get cholera, get dementia, and kill more brain. Get inbred, and kill more brain, and then and then you just have unhinged, horrible people, completely addled with like every possible illness and every possible drug. This is. I mean, that's to a large extent. That's a lot of it right there. I mean, there's all kind of other cultural lifeways and lack of dialectical materialism among other things, and it's just like some kind of basic meritocracy and some kind of statecraft and ability to not be governed by mass violence and inequality and lies. But the mass drugging, mass infection, which are interrelated because of your inability to stop mass infection, right? It's kind of the mass drugging of yourself, and the narco trafficking, which is what ran the colonial era, is really about China. You got to get all drugged up because we only drink drugs, beer and alcohol, among other things. And so China, you got to get drugged up too, and you get all screwed up, and we'll screw you up so much that we'll steal everything, and that's how we'll rule the world, is by plaguing and drugging, and then we'll test all the Chinese athletes because you must be drugging. You can't beat American athletes. You can't. China, there's no possible way. It's inhumanly impossible for a Chinese guy to swim faster than a white guy. Apparently, this is the Australian Olympic swim coach's justification. But it's like, you are the drugger. You took all the drugs. You swim in your own shit water. I think that's cool and normal. You don't take a bath ever, and you have 330 biolabs to make more viruses to spread, like you spread cholera and used biological warfare in the Korean War, among other places. And Unit 731, you like literally said, "Hey, Japanese, can we borrow your best biological warfare unit so we can make more biological warfare?" Anyway, I'll stop going off about that, but because I could go off on that forever. But it is kind of interesting. There's those confluences there. And the belief in the eugenics, which is what causes increased inbreeding, which causes more actual degeneration because of the recessive genes and because of your mind's ability to function. The Europeans even have stories about this, like Game of Thrones, that is about real kings that like they're the extreme inbreeding because of this belief in this made up nonsense about racial supremacy and race theory. And also the keeping the power inside of the family dynastically is part of. It's just all of those things together just are a perfect downward spiral. And why you have Western leaders that are the way they are today. They are the inheritors of this horrific legacy of lack of basic health, lack of public health, and lack of private health. Anyways, okay, let's move on. So the brain fog, coming back to the brain fog. So brain fog is better called SARS associated neurocognitive disorder, or SAND, just like HIV equivalent HAND. It comes in 3 stages: asymptomatic, mild dementia. Same as after SARS-1, you wouldn't have needed to see billions infected to know the basics, right? We also all knew that, all actual serious medical scientists knew actually not here, but it was known, right, that coronaviruses, right, are naturally neuroinvasive. Now, of course, they're neurotropic and associated with Alzheimer's, right? People know this. People don't want to talk about this because, well, I mean, even before COVID, it would suggest that it would be a great policy for people to mask in public spaces. Even before 2020, right? So we don't talk about that. So the WHO and Western so-called health has been hiding all this kind of stuff forever. I mean, the miasma and bad air, again, in the 1800s, they knew that not ventilating hospitals, having sick people, and sharing air was a huge problem. They didn't even have all the specifics that we have now on how viruses and bacteria work, but they knew that having well-ventilated hospitals and having facial coverings and stopping people being nearby each other since the 1800s, it's been known. It's just been lied about by people who make a lot of money and keep power not talking about those things, or just don't want to be slightly inconvenienced. Anyway, so we've known about this in we don't know about that for a while. Yeah. So so this is somebody who this is an interesting post because it illuminates it's a direct anecdotal experience of like what it's like to get the brain damage, not the brain fog, the brain damage, the brain destruction, right? The loss of your personality, the loss of your history, the loss of your memory, right? And the loss of your information. If people don't feel brain damage. You don't really feel it. You might not even, you usually don't even recognize it, right? Other people might see it, because wow, that person's different, right? Brain damage isn't like getting a gunshot, because when you get shot by a bullet. But brain damage, your brain doesn't have any actual your brain doesn't have any actual pain sensing neurons internally, right? The headache you're feeling is not really the brain itself feeling the pain. Like if you poke in the brain, it doesn't actually feel the way that if you poke your arm, right? So you don't feel the damage in your brain. You just simply are a different person, right? You don't recognize it. You might be a bit weirded out when you can't remember something that you used to be able to remember, but many people go through their entire life having severe brain damage, and then never come to terms. They never really realize what has happened to them, right? But anyways, this is somebody who is unusual in that they are recording exactly the damage, right, from COVID. So in my mind, I had this impression that COVID brain fog was just feeling a little bit forgetful or feeling very tired. And my God, was I very, very wrong. Right? Again, so as I said, that's what people associate brain fog with, like being a little bit tired, right? Like being a little bit disorientated, and it's going to come back. But he said, no, that's not the case. It's not something coming back. It's gone. It's part of your brain is gone forever. 3 examples. I have had the same work phone for 2 years with the same passcode. Today, I had to call our IT team to get the code because it was gone. Poof. No trace of it in my mind. I have a code lock on my office door. Again, for 2 years, it has not changed. I had to call my assistant to tell me what it was. I am very, very adept at Excel. I've used it as a program for 2 decades, and we're best friends. To the point, it's probably concerning. Today, I could not remember nor figure out how to change 000242 into a decimal figure as part of a demand and capacity exercise, something I have done hundreds of times before. I'm very, very freaked out by this. I hope to God it isn't permanent. COVID is an awful disease that we have vastly underestimated, and we do so at our own peril. This experience has been a stark wake-up call to just how insidious and far-reaching the effects of this virus can be, and we need to gain a full and rapid understanding of exactly what happens. So again, right? You don't feel that. You don't feel that. And in fact, some people might go through this and they just like, I'm just getting a little forgetful. Most people, they're just like, I'm getting a little forgetful. They'll chalk it up to something else. Oh, I had, too much to drink the other night. I don't know. Sometimes, things just slip your mind, I guess, and people are encouraged to not think about the brain damage that they are accumulating every time they get reinfected with COVID. And if they're not exactly getting damaged, every time you get reinfected, the risk of it goes up and up and up and up and up and up and up every single time. Statistically, scientifically, we know this. So, and this is a good example. That's what it looks like. It looks like you suddenly can't remember things you used to be able to remember. You act in weird, different ways. Like somebody's really emotional at random times that doesn't make any sense, right? They suddenly get angry really fast and for no apparent reason, right? Those are signs of brain damage, right? And actually, like the anger and fear responses go way up. Why is that going up? Many reasons. The damage to the amygdala, and also inhaling toxic mold, which apparently J.K. Rowling likes to do, that whispers in her ear like we're telling that that the transphobia is awesome because she's been living in a rotting ancient Scottish house. The Last of Us cordyceps black fungus is eating her brain, making her who she is. It's a good example of Western culture, as I said, right? It's living in unsanitary, horrible conditions and then killing your brain cells. But you know, if you get, but and this virus does destroy your that mycotoxin from the fungus does destroy your amygdala in your brain, which harms it, and it causes you to get irrationally and at inappropriate times angry. But if you get brain damage generally, your brain is searching for things, right? Your the symphony of, you know, the simultaneous firing of all these electrons, right? It is, your brain is looking for things, right? Your brain is constantly searching for information, is looking for information. When it's interpreting this constant influx, the stream of consciousness of light, sound, smell, taste, right? Your brain is trying to make sense of that. When your brain, now in most of the time, right? Like when you watch a stream, you're like, okay, well that's my computer, and it's I'm seeing white, and I'm seeing brown, and I'm seeing black t-shirt, and I'm seeing, like, you know, this mic, and your brain can make sense of the shapes and colors and sounds that it's seeing, and then your brain is it's like a basic equilibrium state, in a sense of the world makes sense, right? When things stop making sense, right? So when your brain can't integrate information properly, all the sight, sound, taste, scent, like for example, if you see, like, pretend that like you're watching this stream, right? If you got COVID, right, and then suddenly you forget who Silver Spook is, because this is the thing that happens when you get brain damage. You get ataxia, aphasia. You get all these other things. You can't remember words. You might not even recognize it. You can't remember certain faces. Sometimes you can't remember all faces. Like there's a guy who, you know, well, there's some people who have had like serious like shots or stabs in the head, and suddenly they can't recognize their own mother or father's faces, right? But if you get brain damage, one of the things is you can't recognize Silver Spook's face. There's people who got COVID, they can't recognize their own face. I remember this personal story of this guy. This lady on Reddit was like, my husband got COVID. He couldn't remember his own passwords, and then he looked at his face in the mirror and he said, I don't recognize my own face, right? That's one of the brain damages. You can't recognize people's faces. So if you're suddenly looking at the screen and you don't recognize my face, right, you're going to be disoriented. Your brain is integrating the visual and auditory information, and it's unable to make sense of this. It's like, this says Silver Spook stream. The word said, right? The YouTube channel I'm watching on the screen says Silver Spook stream, but that's not Silver Spook, right? So suddenly your brain goes into fear, right? The fear response, because something is not right. Anxiety, fear, cortisol is kicking in, right? Adrenaline could kick in. And then the fear, oh, something is wrong. And then near fear is anger and all these other emotions that are related to, there's an emergency, we need to get active, we need to do something, right? So when you have brain damage, your brain is no longer able to make sense. It's a high probability your brain may be less able to make sense of the world around it. When you're unable to make sense of the world around you, your brain, starts moving fast, more at a higher rate and a higher frequency towards fear and anger responses. And like when you get people with dementia, it's a lot of, they're cranky. Elderly people get cranky and angry and fearful a lot of the time. They don't necessarily say fear, but they're like, that's part of what's happening, is the brain is unable to make sense of the world because it's lost entire parts of itself. So then the world, it's like if you take a book, right, and you cut pages, if you cut the book in half vertically like this, so you only have half. So when you're reading from left to right, only the left half of the page is there. The book doesn't make sense anymore, right? And you're going to be disoriented trying to read a book with only the first half of every sentence. And that's what brain damage can be like, right? Now, obviously not exactly. So then that escalates the fear responses. That escalates, right, disorientation, anxiety responses, increases the cortisol level. Why are people more? Part of the reason why people are more fearful and angry all the time, millions of them around the world, is because they all have serious brain damage. People are posting like angry bullshit all over the internet all the time, but there's an increasing rate, and it's like irrational, nonsensical, fearful, angry stuff. People, road rage is way up. I mean, there's lots and lots of indices, and like you can't. It's like a 1-to-1. Oh, because people have brain damage, it's increasing the road rage by exactly a factor of 1.6. But like this is a natural impact of mass collective brain damage. Is people another weird impact is that the brain damage causes increasingly risky risk-taking behavior, inability to correctly calculate risk and plan long term, right? Because one of the highest order functions in your brain is actually the frontal cortex, right? It is about the executive function, and like project, like the front of your brain is concerned with like taking huge quantities of information and then producing scenarios and projecting into the future to plan for future actions you might take. And it has to think about, if I do X and Y and Z, well, this could happen and that could happen. If I take this job in Cincinnati, well, this and that. And you have to take in huge amounts of information to do that. So it's a very complicated thing that people it's a very complicated function that humans engage in, right? If your brain is not functioning properly, you're not going to be able to calculate and make certain calculations about the risks you're going to take doing a thing in the future, right? So, oh yeah, I'm going to go to that concert. What? There's a lot of virus. Who cares? I mean, yeah. People become less able to calculate the risks of doing things. They just more lackadaisical about things. The more brain damage you get, and then you're also more fearful and angry at the same time, right? So people being like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to that concert. And then somebody who's COVID conscious, like, hey, why are you going to that concert? There's going to be like 80,000 people there. Nobody's masked. It's going to be like a super spreader, right? And then you get really angry and upset, right? Because you might even have so much brain damage, you forgot that COVID is a real thing, and you don't have, your long-term memory is completely blown. And you have like retrograde and anterograde amnesia. You're like, what did you say? But then you're simultaneously like carefree and like kind of ridiculously risk-taking, and then super pissed off and angry. People like bring up, I mean, you can also be pissed off and angry because you have a guilty conscience, because you've chosen your own personal restaurants and fun over collective health. So that's another thing. You're pissed off and angry because people are calling you on your immorality and your horrible choice that you made. But also you might just be like, what? I don't understand. My brain can't integrate the information you just gave me. Because it can't. Because your brain is damaged. Anyways, okay. So, but yeah, this is somebody like, this is interesting because this is a rare case of somebody having a pretty concrete example of how their brain is losing specific memories. I mean, and those are pretty solid, because if you can't remember a code, like if you like met someone for the first time, like you had a job interview, right? And the Starbucks interviewer, right? Or you didn't interview at you interviewed at like a non-GENOCIDAL horrible war crime supporting company. You work for like a Lebanese or a Lebanese or a Libyan coffee shop. You went to an interview, right? And the interviewer's name was like, Khalid. And they were like, hi, my name's Khalid, and let's have an interview so you can work at the Lebanese coffee shop. And the next day, somebody asked, hey, what was that interviewer's name that you were interviewing with? I mean, you might not remember that because that's like short-term memory. Like, you don't remember every single thing that happens. Like, this is how brains work. You don't remember every single thing that happens every single day. There's so much information, so much coming in. Your brain has to like prioritize what gets stored and what doesn't. And so it's kind of like what gets streamed and what gets like on Twitch, right? What gets saved as a VOD versus what just goes away after 2 weeks. Like on YouTube, it's a little bit different, but your brain is kind of like that, right? Like what actually gets stored is not everything. And so like, but in long-term memory, right? When you use passwords that your social security number, your birth date, right? These things are stored in deep memory. Like it's much harder to forget those kinds of things, right? So if this person is forgetting multi-year-old passwords, right? They're forgetting, like, these are almost muscle memory, right? Because musicians find they can't even play music after getting COVID. Like, you forget. And that's those are pretty deeply ingrained. You perform and practice a song hundreds or thousands of times, Like I can still like play a lot of chords like without thinking about it. I can play like lots of songs without even thinking about it on guitar because I played like 8 hours a day guitar for like much of my high school years. So that is deeply ingrained like muscle memory. It's stored in a very different way and in a very deep way in your brain tissue. Like it's not a bit of information that you might or might not remember from yesterday, right? Like what ice cream did you have on Tuesday? You might or might not remember it. It's not, but like what are the, what are the first three notes of like the Star Wars episode 4, dun, 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 right? Everybody knows that, right? Or most people know that because they've seen how many times they've seen the Star Wars, right? If you play, that's why movies work, is because you can play like the first 3 bars of a song and instantly everybody knows. That's why jingles work, because people, oh yeah, I love that song, it's my favorite childhood song. People forget their childhood songs, right? Oh, people like forget, like people forget like the first 3 notes of like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. That's how bad. And that's how you can tell if you have this kind of brain damage. That's one of the ways that you can tell it's something far more serious than just a little bit of a brain fog. But anyways, now I'm just talking about neuroscience. But the important thing is that people know that like this is also why we don't take any risks ever. I have to do, just as a personal note, right? I have to do, and as a slight segue into Silverspook needs to make money to keep doing these videos. Like I have to complete Neofeud 2, the sequel to Neofeud 1. I have the writing and the programming and the music and the writing, the programming, and the art and animations for this entire video game. It's like 7 years worth of material. It's like a huge document of 600,000 words of lore. I cannot afford to forget who Carl Carbon is. I can't afford to forget because of brain damage I got from COVID because I didn't wear a mask and N95 respirator in public, right? And go to concert and go to restaurants and risk destroying my brain. Because how am I going to finish the 7 years worth of my life's freaking work, the sequel to Neofeud 1, Neofeud 2, which, by the way, is coming this August. If you're a Patreon member, you can play at least a rough draft of it. So consider supporting us on Patreon as well. Because many of our, we can always use that support, and nobody is going to pay us money to say these kind of true things in any official capacity for the United States government, education system, or anything else. And we just lost one of our Patreon patrons. That was a pretty serious patron. So we would definitely look forward to getting some more Patreon patrons to make up the difference. And also you get access to all the behind the scenes. Like, I mean, I have lots of like to paint these. I have to remember all kind of programming, like semicolon and parentheses. I have to remember all the variables and the JavaScript language. If you in programming, if you miss a single parentheses, a conditional statement, if you get any, it's not like writing English, right? If you say some BS, New York Times will still publish your nonsense, war propaganda. If you get a semicolon wrong, if you get one single letter off in computer programming, your program will not work. And there's much more to remember, like when it comes to that, right? So I cannot afford to get COVID or COVID and forget how to program in JavaScript. I cannot afford, because the Silverspook games like Neofeud 2. This is some Neofeud 2 behind the scenes, by the way. I cannot afford to forget how to program and how to produce the Photoshop art and paint. How to all the hotkeys and like just all the techniques that I use in light and shadow and making shapes and surrealist, abstract, cyberpunk, gonzo, science fiction, writing and art making. I can't forget any of those things. It's a lot of stuff. It's actually, I'm realizing it's kind of a challenge to keep it all in my head. That's why I want to get this thing done as soon as possible so I can kind of offload some of it, because I have to keep 600,000 words of story, a whole universe of story with dozens and dozens of characters and backstories. I have to keep how to program it, the JavaScript, like hundreds of thousands of lines of code in my head, and I also have to keep like all this art and skills and also promoting all this stuff in my head. It's like just a lot of stuff. It's like a lot of stuff. And while I'm finishing the game, if I get COVID and I lose I just blow holes in the story. Who is Protege? Oh my god, I forgot. Right? Who is the cyborg social worker with a robot arm who is helping delinquent ex-con robot drug dealers get on their, and I can't remember that kind of stuff, right? Who is the, I can't afford to lose any of this stuff because it will completely wreck the game. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it could be catastrophic damage, right? It's like literally. So that's like, I'm like, and like if Silver Spoon Games, like if I don't make the money, then we don't have roofs and we don't have house and we don't have like basic needs being met, you know? So it's like not me and 4 people rely on me being good at making video games and promoting them and doing stuff like that, you know? So, right? So anyway, long story short, so it is an economic risk. It's that's why it's so unhinged. It's like, aren't you worried about like not being able to perform? Because when you get mass disabled physically and mentally, whatever job you had, the people that rely on you for that job and the income, you completely are wrecking your and their life, right? Potentially, if you get catastrophic long COVID, like I said, right, with that serious disabling, or even if many people I know, they can't support us anymore because they got long COVID, and it's terrible, you know? And so their minds don't work. They can't do Excel. They can't program. They can't do their marketing job because they can't like remember basic information. You know, that person was saying, I forgot how to use Excel spreadsheet to convert time to decimals, right? You can't do your office job. That's not that hard, but you still have to do certain tasks. And if you can't do that office job, where's the money going to come for your rent, your house, your food? How does your country treat disabled people? I mean, if you don't know, you might want to find out. And I'll give you a spoiler alert. You're being treated like a piece of human, at best, horribly. And at worst, you'll be institutionalized. All your autonomy taken away and your life will basically largely end. And it's its own kind of pinhead torture dungeon to be institutionalized as a disabled, especially a disabled non-white person, but just to be a disabled person, all your autonomy and your personhood basically wiped away from the earth. Is its own pain dungeon. So it's amazingly foolish, economically foolish, to risk getting COVID for you personally. I mean, let alone spreading it to other people, and especially if you have to if you're the breadwinner for a family, for people in your household, roommates, you have to care for an elderly or other disabled person. It is amazingly foolish to risk getting this catastrophic mass unaliving, mass disabling virus. You know what I'm saying? It's unbelievable. But you know, a lot of things are unbelievable nowadays. And that's why we try to hopefully educate as many people so they stop making these catastrophically, unbelievably bad decisions. Okay, anyways, let's finish up. It's 12:49. Also, what's up to McLovin? Trying see. Did I have any other updates? Yeah. So again, yeah, it destroys COVID destroys your brain, and it is permanent. It's not temporary. Many people will oh no, I got better. People, part of the failure of you to make proper risk assessments is you believe that you've gotten better from things that you haven't actually. There were studies that have been done that people who believe they have gotten better from long COVID, what they have done, they haven't gotten better. What happened is they have adjusted their life expectations lower, and then things seem normal, but really they're physically unable to. Oh yeah, it's all gone. But like physically, they used to be able to run 2 miles, and now they can barely walk 1 mile. Right? They haven't gotten better. They just are doing their normal is adjusted down. Right? That's not gotten better. Like it's not that you never improve ever, right? But very few people. It's like a tiny percentage of people actually get back to where they were before long COVID. This is not what's happening, right? And in fact, when you get the COVID, it stays in your body. 100% of autopsies of people post-mortem have found COVID in the heart tissue, like in your aorta. Like herpes, COVID is forever, right? It's in the brain tissue. It's in the bone marrow. It's in organs all over the place, right? People are testing positive for COVID for 90 days, like on average in some cases. Now, the latest strain, people are like not, the hospitals and clinics in like San Francisco and New York are not even testing people because so many people who are getting the latest strain are just continuously testing positive. Like Holly has a friend who was very functional. Her and her partner have missed an entire pay period, and they have never stopped testing positive. They just recently got COVID. They're like, when are we gonna test negative? COVID is evolving. It's getting worse. It's not getting better. It's evading. I mean, people don't even. You keep, Anyway, let's go to here. People keep saying, and like the media and Western media is saying things like, we have to, hey everybody, now that it's catastrophically, amazingly, undeniably bad levels of COVID, guess what? This is Canada, right? There's a chance that you have COVID. I mean, there's a chance. I mean, yes, that's what you have, right? Have you been getting colds and flus every 2 weeks? It's because your immune system was destroyed on par with HIV/AIDS by COVID. So even if anyway, that's another. Oh, it's back to normal where we're all getting sick every week. No, it's not normal to get sick every week. That has been abnormal for the last 4 years, as people have been getting sick every week because they have no immune system left over. Every time and also they're saying what you need to do right now is you need to come in and get a COVID vaccination. And vaccinations are great. They help a little bit. They don't stop the spread of COVID, right? And they don't stop significantly long COVID. So it doesn't. The Vax and Relax was a bunch of Pfizer billionaire money making nonsense, right? I mean, it's fine to get a Vax, but that's not even close to sufficient for this, right? Vax and Relax, that's like saying like, put on a heavy t-shirt, put on a heavy jacket and walk into the fire and you'll be protected. I mean, it's like you'll burn slightly slower than walking into a fire naked. But in terms of long COVID, it's like less than 10% protection if you get, and also the vaccinations you can get, they're not updated for the latest COVID, and the latest vaccinations, they're not even available. Like Holly and I, we keep checking in. When you check in, most people, when they check in, okay, where can I apply? You look with the government websites, you look at the hospital, where can I get it? It's unavailable, right? So the responses were always too little, too late. The present responses are like nonsensical. They're not talking about, masking and taking those precautions. They're not doing anything actually serious. They don't even have up-to-date vaccines. People aren't up to date. Even if people who have a lot of money and time to spend privately on these things, a lot of them even can't find. How are you going to get the average broke person who is like poorer than they were last year, who is already broke, you got to spend money on a vaccine you can't even get access to. And even if you get it, that's not sufficient to protect you. If you get the vaccine, that's like less than 10% reduction of the probability of long COVID. So it's like, it's not that there's no point. Right, and there are other vaccines that are much more, obviously measles, mumps, rubella. Those, those are different viruses. It's not that they're not effective, but they are not even close to sufficient. Like obviously, being the conservatives, like let's just do nothing at all, and that's terrible, right? But then believing that if I take this vaccine, I'm going to be fine. It's, if you take a vaccine and you don't mask, it's actually statistically you actually would be less likely of getting body and brain damage if you didn't get vaccinated and you actually mask, because the reduction of the total probability of getting any illness, right, is actually is reduced by 80-90% depending on how much you're interacting and where you're interacting and how well fitting your mask is, right? So this is why the West pushes the vaccine, because the Democrats just billions of dollars invested in private universal death care. I'm sorry, Western healthcare, and they don't talk about any of the other actual measures, and they don't bring up the fact that historically public health precautions not pharmaceutical interventions is what has actually increased quality of life and life expectancy. Because nobody is making billions of dollars from that particularly, right? But everyone gets healthier, but nobody makes tons of money, right? And this is why this is why non-Western countries will do some of those things that are pro public health, and Western countries and capitalist countries like that, they don't care, just generally speaking, because there's no money to be made. There's no money to be made for the capitalist system that benefits from all of this sickness, culturally, spiritually, mentally, and obviously physically. So, anyways, so let me see if there's anything else I wanted to touch on. Yeah, and on the Olympics front, as I mentioned previously, right? This directly relates to what was happening on the Olympics. I mean, obviously, there's much racism and anti-woke nonsense and people testing for genders. Like, spend less time worrying about woke and trying to see into people's pants, right? And just work on your skills, and maybe you will win some fights, and stop accusing people of not being the gender that they have already been tested by the official Olympic committee's system. Anyway, so but also there's on top of that another reason, right? If you want to win medals, stop creeping on Asian and African people's genitals, work harder, but also stop self-plaguing with COVID while snorting E. coli water. Okay, many of the people who would have won, and in particular, it's Westerners, right? Many people who would have won or have been done well potentially, right? Like gymnast Jade Carey in the Tokyo Olympic floor gold medalist. So she had already won a gold, right, medal. She didn't even qualify for the final after an illness led to a mistake-riddled qualifying. That could obviously be physical, your muscle memory, right? Again, it is amazingly, unbelievably bad decision. I mean, as I said, I cannot make a bad decision because I can't ruin my mind, because most of my job, my professional life, revolves around me being able to finish the games. That takes a lot of a variety of skills as a solo dev to finish, right? If you are an athlete, your job is your years, 8 hours a day you spend training your body, exercising, building all this muscle memory, which is mental and it's also physical, right? To be able to do the amazing, like Simone Biles, like groundbreaking gymnastics, to do these or Jay Carey doing this, amazing feats. You have to have all kind of a coordination, so much very finely tuned physical coordination, and obviously stamina and all these other things, right? Why would you risk getting a disease that will completely wipe all your ability out? It's just like, anyway. She says, I was dizzy, couldn't eat, I had no energy or sense of what was happening, and her dad had been ill days earlier. And obviously, and also if you are an athlete, right, the probability that with COVID specifically, it's important for people to know, if you exercise a lot, right, it's when you go to the doctor, certainly Western doctors, right, people will say you need to eat healthy, eat more fruits and vegetables, get more exercise, right? That's usually what they'll just say, right? It's just like the canned response, which is not necessarily bad to get exercise, and it's not bad to eat vegetables and fruits in a diverse diet, and that's great. However, if you exercise, if you exert your body to a high level, you do a lot of exercise, when you get COVID, you multiply the probability that you have an extremely bad, catastrophically bad COVID experience. I mean, this is something that people have been learning for the last years, right? Because of the way that your body uses energy, and the way that the way that the body the mechanisms by which COVID operates, it will start to I forget. I recently read an article that was basically that was just about that, but part of it has to do with the way that your body is using energy and the way that COVID hacks into like your mitochondria and like the inside of your cells. And when you overexert yourself, you actually magnify the damage, which actually would have been a lot less if you had simply like not exercised very much, at least during the initial infection, right? And so a lot of, because I remember in early on, a lot of people who got catastrophically ill in 2020 were like people who were CrossFit lovers, people who were like really active, like athletes. They tended to get hit super hard because like they're just daily, their routine is exercise, exercise, exercise. Even in Hawaii, there was like a bartender who like loved like running and going to the gym, and like he felt a little under the weather. It was like in 2020 early on, and then he was okay, and then he went to the gym, and as he was exercising, he just collapsed. Right? And you've heard this. I'm sure you've heard some stories like this. But this is one of the things. Anyway, so that's a whole other thing where athletes, and you're like about to have one of the biggest events of your life. You're not gonna stop all of a sudden, right? I'm feeling a little bit sniffly. I'm feeling a little bit of a sore throat. You're not gonna stop. You're like, I gotta prepare for, and then but that can cause catastrophic damage to your body. Anyway, but I mean, just in general, getting this disease, this seems like a really bad choice. It doesn't seem it is a very bad choice. Anyways, German decathlete and medal hopeful Manuel Eitel is out of the post COVID Olympics. We're in the post, COVID Olympics with Corvette, not it's Corvette. The COVID. We never say that. We don't know what it is. Posting on Instagram, he wrote, "Today is one of the worst days of my life. What I'm feeling right now is beyond any defeat I have ever experienced. I no longer understand the world. No longer understanding the world. You remember what I said about when you have catastrophic brain damage, you don't feel, like your brain doesn't feel like it's been beaten by like the Hulk and smashed and, stabbed. You don't feel the pain. What happens is you become very disoriented. You become unable, again, right? You're unable to interpret all the information coming at you, right? You might even not even remember who you are. You lose parts of your own personality. You lose your who. You look at your it's like kind of like not Benjamin Button, but like the stuff that you learn of your life disappears, and then or there's holes in it all over the place, right? And so you're unable to understand the world. That's a symptom. That's a symptom of the brain damage, right? Now, if you feel like your body simply can't move, and you're like, I don't understand why I can't move my body. That's not necessarily the brain, but having that experience of not being able to integrate information that is coming at you is one of the symptoms of brain damage, and a serious cognitive decline. Now it can be temporary if you get knocked out. Obviously, you don't integrate anything because now you're unconscious. But if you have this sense of like I don't understand, you don't understand what is going on in the world. You don't recognize faces. You don't remember basic information, right? But also, again, this is somebody who is training their whole life for this, very, very high intensity, super competitive. You have to be the best of millions of people at, the pole vault, at the shot put, right? At the 100-meter sprint. You have to be the best of millions of people. And then you have to be the best of billions of people. Hyper competitive, right? And like, I spend all day long, micromanaging every single calorie in my diet, right? And then, okay, how about like, all that work you put in there, you're gonna wreck all of that when you get this one. Oh, so what kind of precautions are you taking to stop getting this catastrophic, completely body destroying virus? Oh, well, I just don't care. It's just weird, right? I mean, I don't know. It's just like, it's not just weird. It's almost like this. It's like, it's like unbelievable. It's hard to integrate that information. It's kind of like, it's like watching PALSTINE, right? Updates. I can't integrate this information. Like, how are people watching all of these children being so horribly unalived, right? And just being horrible, the most disgusting things that humans ever invented, doing these to innocent people there. And then you look at all the people like in your family, in your neighborhood, your government, your leaders, your celebrities, all like watching that and being like, oh yeah, that's fine, that's cool. right? It's hard to make sense of that, right? And that's not because you have COVID brain damage. That's because the collective West is brain damaged and soul damaged and heart damaged and everything damaged. Anyways, but the Finnish swimming star Matti Mattsson has tested positive after a disappointing performance in the 200-meter breaststroke. He failed to reach the semifinal in a race where he won bronze at Tokyo. Again, did well, won a medal, in Tokyo in the last 2 years. Suddenly, you can't even reach the semifinal. But obviously, he was doing well enough, right? He was doing well enough, and then he tested positive for the virus, and then suddenly, you can't even get to the semifinals, right? I don't think that he just like randomly had a lot of muscle spasms and forgot how to swim. I mean, if you get COVID, you could forget how to swim because your muscle memory in your brain gets destroyed, or your muscles get destroyed in a way that the nerves no longer function properly and don't swim, because COVID hits every part of your body. Anything that has blood, which is like every cell in your body, it needs blood. Is your any part of your body that's made out of organic material is vulnerable to COVID. So even your hair can fall out, your teeth. So I don't know why you would make that decision. Anyway, we know, so this is another one, but related, right? We know that there's going to be some E. coli exposure because they're going to swim in the feces-filled, disgusting cesspool filled where all the waste and sewage is dumped into this river in France. And the French, I don't know, man. They saw fit that everyone should just swim in that as part of the Olympics. I don't know what this that is high Western culture right there. And by culture I mean a petri dish full of multiplying E. coli. Western petri dish culture right there. I just tried to increase my E. coli threshold by exposing myself to a bit of E. coli in your day-to-day life. I mean, this is very common though, if you think about it, right? The Liver King is just like, I never take a bath ever. I just eat raw, untreated liver. I like eat cows. I like bite living cows with H5N1 right on their teat. I just eat the teat while the cow's alive. And I just like drink all that H5N1. People like liberals in California have been demanding raw milk, untreated, unhomogenized, unpasteurized milk from H5N1 infected cows. There are 11 million, at least 11 million only raw milk drinkers in the U.S. A lot of these, only raw health nut. I mean, these people like call themselves health nuts and like, I will only drink raw untreated milk. Give me all the cholera. Just give me all the give me all the E. coli, give me all the measles, and that's gonna say that make me strong. In Silicon Valley, it was trendy several years ago to drink raw, untreated river water. Like they would literally this. So I mean, this is Western culture. It's Euro culture. They would drink, like they would go to a human waste and industrial waste filled river, like stream, body of flowing water in California, densely populated areas. Take water out of that in a bottle. Bottle the raw river waste filled water, and they drink that. And people started dying. Like workers at Facebook and like the best professionals, smartest people in the world in Mountain View, people who worked at Twitter in the big FANG Silicon Valley tech. These are like the geniuses of the world, right? And they're drinking untreated shit-filled water. Like I'm a neurocognitive scientist or program AI at Google or Instagram or I'm programming at Microsoft, and let me just drink some river water. I mean, so I don't know what is happening there, but I think it's part of the deep DNA. It's the genetic historical memory handed down of centuries upon millennia of drinking your own piss and feces. And then when you don't have that, just drink lots of brain destroying alcohol, wine and beer, right? For centuries in Europe. And in order to and believing that that's a good idea, right? I don't know what is going on with these people. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. Why would you ever do this? Stop doing that. That's freaking gross, man. It's freaking gross. Why are you doing that? Why do the Europeans think it is a total normal thing to swim in that disgusting river? People are like coming out vomiting all over the place. You know, they're like, "Oh my god, I feel so horribly sick after swimming in this disgusting river." Like, I mean, people around the world, like Asians and Africans and the rest of the world, is looking at that and they're going like, "Why are you doing that? What is wrong with you?" Right? What is wrong with you? You know, it's the syphilis and the cholera and the alcohol brain damage. I suppose. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with these people. Oh my god. Also, J.K. Rowling is turned all over Taiwan. The U.S. Imperial proxy war on China is not going to work because Michael Jackson addled billionaire British turf J.K. Rowling is uniting all of East Asia by insulting and making up nonsense to insult a beloved woman fighter in Taiwan who like learned self-defense to fight against domestic violence, and Rowling is over there. You know what? J.K. Rowling is surrounded by airborne The Last of Us fungus, you know, but again, Western petri dish culture, you know. And the black mold, it's actually empirical. It's scientifically been shown that like consuming and like inhaling large quantities of certain kinds of fungus and mold increases it can damage your body and your brain. Like this entire like huge, like there's like class action lawsuits and stuff for things like religious. And Rowling is like living in a house filled with this crap and snorting that, and it makes her extra transphobic. And anyway, that's here's the live footage of J.K. Rowling and her black mold. That girl is so cute. I wonder what she's listening to. You've got to get even more transphobic, Joanne. This is what happens when you snort your unsanitary European castle fungus. You know, it just makes you more and more and more of a nonsensical, bigot, horrible person. Apparently, I mean, you know, again, I mean, I want to argue that this is like, I mean, it's ridiculous, but you know, I feel like, you know, someday we're gonna go through some forensic evidence. We're gonna find that like a lot of these bad decisions, again, syphilis, you know, the cholera, all the things, all these diseases, these impact your body and your brain. They make you make bad decisions, like I've already said, right? I talked about it earlier. And then imbibing extra drugs and alcohol is a drug as well. All these things, because you can't sanitize your water properly, and so the alcohol means you can consume it with less chance of getting sick. But that also means that you're hurting your brain and your body with mass consumption of alcohol. I mean, Holly has a relative who is in danger of like having a psychotic break if she consumes alcohol. Like they said, you really got to stop, because that can cause you, because her personality was transforming when she would have alcohol, right? And like that's like one known case, right? So like it can cause massive, very bad personality and mind and psyche changes, right? And everyone is mass consuming that stuff and also snorting the mold off the wall. And that's really, it's not, you don't want to be doing that kind of thing. Okay, just stop swimming in E. coli water. Stop snorting your transphobic Scottish castle mold. Okay, and stop snorting COVID from all your friends at this massive concert with 50,000 people there. Okay, it's not good. It's why you're disintegrating. It's very bad. But anyway, so yeah, long story short, don't forget to be masked, take the precautions as necessary. Remember that is ongoing panini, and it's not going away. It's getting worse. H5N1, just to recap, H5N1 is the H5N1, the bird flu, is accelerated by COVID. Cows have it, cats, rats, mice have it. Apparently cats and rats and mice who are like eating human food and other waste, they're getting COVID from that. They're spreading it to each other. There is other mammal to other mammal transmission, and it is mutating in the mice and the rats as we speak. And then you also have, and then the cows are immunocompromised, and then they're spreading and accelerating the speed of H5N1 through themselves. Anyway, so it's really it's all these things are impacting each other in increasing ways. So we got to take all the precautions that you possibly can. What can you do about if H5N1 does make a bigger human to human jump? You're gonna have to mask even more. Take more precautions. Especially if the rest of the people around you are not. Okay, and I know that's gonna be socially very hard. It's been 4.5 years for Holly and myself. We have isolated ourselves. It's been hard to socialize. A lot of people that we used to meet up, a lot of family members. It's been super hard. We don't get to have as many connections as we used to. But you know what? Holly and myself and our kids, we mask every time we go anywhere. We avoid high traffic, high density times. But Holly and our kids have had zero COVID. And the worst is the kids, because children now, they're performing multiple years below their age, right? Millions of kids are permanently disabled. They can't even learn, right? And that's like the worst, because it is one thing if you want to risk your life, you're risking young children's life who has their whole life ahead of them. That's a whole other thing. And our kids have had zero COVID. We haven't had it, as far as we know. We haven't had any cold, any flu, any sore throat, any measles, mumps, rubella. The respiratory virus that goes around at the end of the year every year. I forgot what the name of it. There's several of them, but all we haven't had any virus or bacteria, human to human spread that we know of. Also, we have less allergies when we wear masks if we need to. So it's a trade-off. It just means you have less people making this terrible decision to talk to, and maybe it's harder to have jobs. I know people that work in offices and they're the only person masking, and it sucks. On the other hand, everyone around them is dying and getting mass disabled, and many people around them are no longer employed because they got long COVID or long COVID, and they can't even think and work anymore, and so now they have no job, right? So would you rather have a mask and people look at you weird and keep having a rent and house, or would you rather be dead or completely disabled with no job, with no living in a shelter, living packed together with relatives who don't really like you very much and don't care about your new disability, right? Just think about it like that, right? It's going to be a little bit inconvenient, maybe, slightly, barely. The worst part is the social part for many people, because it's people are going to look at me weird. People are going to think I'm weird. And, people already look at us weird. People looked at us weird the whole time. People still look at us weird. So maybe it's easier for us because we're just in our own family, in many of our communities, we've always been misfits. And so it's now we're going to fit in even less, and you can all bite us, That's an old 1990s saying. I don't mean don't come bite us, because I know there are some weird, Western people that are gonna try to take a bite out of us because they think that we're like an H5N1 infected bovine. Okay, I mean reality bites, not. I like to eat E. coli rats. Apparently Germans and French do. I don't understand. Take. We have to continue to just live in the real truth, despite how unhinged and disconnected from the truth everyone is becoming, because the future depends on that. Anyways, if you would like to support us, you can help us out. Don't forget, Neofeud is on sale for the next day. Neofeud 1, which supports everything we do here at the Source Food Cooperative, is a cyberpunk adventure game and a retro 90s style point-and-click adventure about the cyborg social worker, a homeless social worker for homeless robots and half-human chimeras, and a ex-con robot, ex-drug dealer, and an ex-trillionaire princess who try to overthrow a global plutocratic floating palaces at Versailles living nasty group of rich people in a game called Neofeud. And if that sounds interesting to you, don't forget, you can get Neofeud, which I spent 2.5 years working on the music, writing, programming, art, and half the voice acting on this game. And it was a lot of work. And I tried to stay as not sick as possible while working on it. as I said earlier. But there was no COVID when I was working on this one. But Neofeud 2, I'm trying to stay as not sick as possible, unlike certain Olympic athletes, so I can keep on performing at the level that I need to. So you have 17 hours to get this game on sale. So run, skip, hop, jump, flip, and backflip somersault to Steam and grab it. And also, if you have a second to leave even a very short review, it is massively appreciated because it does increase the likelihood that the game will be discovered in the Steam algorithm. You can also help us out with a direct one-time donation through ko-fi.com/silverspook. And over here, you can get access to the... you can give us a one-time donation with maximum revenue coming to us when you do a Ko-Fi donation. You can also go to patreon.com/neofeud and become a ongoing supporter and help us out with in an ongoing fashion. And you also get access to behind the scenes updates on what we're working on. I recently put out a video about U.S. bases out of Hawaii and Saipan and the Marianas in anti-imperial Hawaii discussion with my friend Lonnie for Pacifica. These are Neofeud 2 updates. If you like science fiction, cyberpunk, video game news, you can also we also have updates about the Silver Spook Cooperative, garden and food. You can also gardening and maintaining your local environment and keeping your ecology green and producing food and medicine is a thing you could do with very low risk when it comes to aerosolized viruses as well. So that's something we do a lot here. And we have updates on it on the Patreon site. And you also get access to the Silver Spook Discord when you become a Silver Spook Patreon. And you also get access to the Silver Spook University. Hey, it's back to school time. Forgot to even say. Apparently, much of the United States is short on buses. Because bus drivers all got sick and afraid of getting sick during COVID, and they all retired or quit or died. And they don't have enough. And maybe school will be out this summer and this fall and forever, just as was said in the rock song from the 70s, school could be out forever. And if university, do you want to go back to the mass war crime supporting university, which all Western universities are doing? You don't? Become a Silver Spook Patreon and go to Silver Spook University. Only full virus precautions, all remote, very cheap, $1. Any Patreon level, you get access to it. And also, no supporting GENOCIDE and mass unaliving of children, unlike all Western universities. So you can, digital education combines decolonized history, current struggles, imagined futures, cultural analysis from a native Hawaiian activist, educator, science fiction writer, and professional game developer. So don't forget, you can get all those things from the Silver Spook University. Also, don't forget, you can also get Neofeud and other games on itch.io for Windows and Mac and Linux, also on sale there. And maximum revenue comes to us when you pick up the game on itch. There's also several other games on the itch.io website, like Decolonators, Indigenous Star, Pigeon with Gun, and Woman is a book by Howley, who was raised in right-wing evangelical Protestant Christianity that dunks on that kind of conservative Christian culture. Also, you can follow at Silver Spook Games at Octodon.social, at Silver Spook Games at Mastodon.social, and Mastodon. And you can also follow, obviously, on Twitter. You can follow at Silver Spook Guy. And you can also follow at Silver Spook Games minus the Ian Silver for the games related stuff. We also have Instagram, Facebook sites, and you can also follow Terminus C, Terminus Cyberstar, a low poly cyberpunk immersive sim. This is another 3D cyberpunk game that I am the content director and the lead writer for. And of course, you can also follow Holly at Allergic to Blue. Do not follow J.K. Rowling, please. But you can follow Holly at Allergic to Blue, Landback, and Free Hawaii, Married to Myself, Tech for the Kate Nix Music and Variety Show, and Sapphic Queer Mama of 2, and me, CFS Haver. And of course, we are always masking, because why would you not be doing that? Because you wear a mask if you love your community. That's what we do. Anyways, and you love having your brain functioning and not being tortured by Pinhead. Anyways, and if you do like going to BDSM, I have to tell you, it's much worse than that. It's not that kind of pain. It's the bad kind. Also, thank you to all these Patrons for your ongoing support. Massively appreciated. I got to remove one. Somebody recently canceled. But thank you to all these people for your ongoing support. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Consider joining all of these awesome people in this list. Who are the best peoples of all times? The most amazing, the most brilliant, the most beautiful, the most riveting people. The most sorry, I'm looking for a name and I can't find it this second. Maybe I already removed it. Anyways, thanks to everybody on the list. If you would like to join them, consider becoming a patron. Until next time, keep your mask on. Try to not disintegrate your local community and your brain cells. Don't drink E. coli. Don't drink E. coli water. Why do I gotta say that? Anyways, I will see you.